For decades, Hollywood whispered about an unspoken rift between two towering legends, Sophia Loren and George Peppard. On screen, they shared fame, glamour, and success, but behind the lights, something went terribly wrong. No interviews, no public confrontations, no explanations, just silence. A silence so deliberate it only fueled speculation, rumors, and unanswered questions that refused to fade with time. Now, at 91, Sophia Loren has finally broken that silence, and what she reveals doesn't just clarify the past. It completely reshapes how we understand one of Hollywood's most mysterious and uncomfortable partnerships. But now, at 91, Sophia Loren has finally spoken up, and what she said left even the most seasoned followers of old-school Hollywood stunned. Her words were calm, measured, almost restrained, yet they carried a weight that silenced the room. There was no drama, no exaggeration, no attempt to shock only truth delivered after decades of avoidance. It became immediately clear that something real had happened between her and George Peppard, something painful enough that she chose silence for years. And now, for the first time, she was ready to let the world know that the story everyone thought they understood was never complete. Sophia Loren's journey to becoming one of the most beloved actresses in cinema history began far from glamour. Born Sofia Villani Ciccoloni in Rome in 1934, she grew up amid hardship during World War II, surrounded by poverty, instability, and uncertainty. Her mother, fiercely ambitious for her daughter, enrolled her in a Neapolitan acting school, scraping together the money by teaching piano. That sacrifice opened the door to Sophia's earliest opportunities. Through acting instructor Pino Serb, she secured her first uncredited film appearances, including Hearts at Sea and The Vow in 1950. Those tiny roles carried no fame, but they marked the first steps of a life that would soon change forever. In the early 1950s, Sophia and her mother moved to Rome after learning that MGM was producing Quo Vadis and needed extras. At just 16, she appeared as an uncredited extra in the 1951 epic. But more importantly, she caught the attention of influential figures who saw something extraordinary in her. That same year, she landed supporting roles in films like Aida and later took on leading parts under the early screen name Sophia Loren. The roles were modest, but her presence was undeniable. Her career truly shifted when producer Carlo Ponti, who would later become her husband, renamed her Sophia Loren, crafting a name that sounded international, elegant, and timeless. With that change came momentum. Early acclaim followed her performances in films like Aida in 1953, but her breakthrough arrived with The Gold of Naples in 1954. Her on-screen partnership with Marcello Mastroianni in Too Bad, She's Bad and Beautiful but Dangerous placed her firmly at the center of Italian cinema, captivating audiences with a blend of vulnerability, strength, and unmistakable magnetism. By the late 1950s, Sophia Loren was no longer just an Italian star, she was an international sensation. Films such as Boy on a Dolphin, Scandal and Sorrento, and The Pride and the Passion, alongside Cary Grant and Frank Sinatra, propelled her onto the global stage. In 1958, she signed a major 5-picture deal with Paramount Pictures, cementing her Hollywood status. Roles in Desire Under the Elms, Houseboat, and Hella in Pink Tights showcased her range, even daring her to reinvent herself, famously going blonde for one role. But it was two women in 1960 that sealed her place in film history. Playing a mother struggling to protect her daughter during wartime, Sophia delivered a performance of raw emotional power. She won Best Actress at the Cannes Film Festival and made history by becoming the first performer to win an Academy Award for a non-English language role. From that moment on, she was no longer just admired, she was revered. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, Sophia Loren stood at the very peak of global fame, commanding enormous salaries for epics like El Cid and The Fall of the Roman Empire, while continuing her celebrated collaborations with Marcello Mastroianni in classics such as Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. She worked with legendary directors, appeared in Charlie Chaplin's final film, and balanced elegance with emotional depth in every role she chose. After becoming a mother in 1968, she slowed her pace, focusing on select projects and family life, yet her influence never faded. Her later years brought continued recognition, including multiple Golden Globes, an Academy Honorary Award in 1991, and successful ventures into business, writing cookbooks, launching fragrance and eyewear lines, and returning to acting in acclaimed projects such as Nine, The Human Voice, and The Life Ahead, directed by her son, Eduardo Ponti. Even after turning 90, Loren made it clear that her love for cinema had not dimmed. She had no intention of stopping. Beyond the screen, Sophia Loren's life has been defined by devotion to family, faith, and privacy. A deeply religious woman, she spent much of her later life in Geneva, Switzerland, embracing a quieter existence far removed from Hollywood's noise. Over the years, she owned properties across the world from California to New York, Florida, and Rome, but increasingly chose peace over spectacle. Her legacy, however, remains anything but quiet, and it is from this place of distance, reflection, and lived experience that Sophia Loren finally spoke about a chapter she had kept closed for decades. not out of bitterness, not for attention, but because time had given her the clarity to speak honestly. What she revealed was not just about a fractured relationship, but about boundaries, dignity, and the cost of silence in an industry that rarely forgives it. Though she has always projected poise and composure in public, Sophia Loren has never lost her playful spark. A devoted supporter of SSC Napoli, she once joked that she would do a striptease if the team won a major match, delivering the line with such charm that it became legendary rather than scandalous. At an age when most icons retreat from the spotlight, Loren continued to surprise the world. She posed for the prestigious 2007 Pirelli calendar, reminding audiences that confidence and magnetism do not fade with time. In February 2021, she appeared on BBC Radio 4's Desert Island Discs, revealing a warm, humorous side of her personality. She chose a pizza oven as her luxury item, spoke lovingly of music by Cole Porter and Debussy, and shared a story about Richard Burton becoming genuinely furious after she cheated at Scrabble, proof that even giants of cinema were no match for her competitive wit. In September 2023, Loren faced a sobering health scare after falling at her home in Switzerland and fracturing her hip and femur, requiring emergency surgery. The incident quietly reminded the world that even living legends must confront the vulnerabilities of age. Her personal life has been just as compelling as her screen career. In 1950, at only 15 years old, Sophia met producer Carlo Ponti, who was 37 at the time. Their relationship began under complicated circumstances, and with divorce illegal in Italy, they married by proxy in Mexico in 1957 while Ponti was still legally married. To avoid charges of bigamy, the marriage was annulled, yet they remained together. After becoming French citizens in 1965, Ponti was finally able to divorce legally and remarry Sophia in 1966. They stayed devoted to one another until his death in 2007. Together, they raised two sons, Carlo Jr. and Edouard, and Loren later became a grandmother to 4 grandchildren. Her connections extended across generations of Hollywood, including being one of Drew Barrymore's godparents, a testament to her enduring presence and influence. Sophia Loren's romantic history also included one of Hollywood's most famous off-screen affairs. During the late 1950s, while filming The Pride and the Passion, she became involved with Cary Grant. The relationship ended before the film wrapped, but it created lasting tension, particularly when Grant hoped Loren would star opposite him in Houseboat instead of his then-wife, Betsy Drake. Despite Grant's efforts to rekindle the romance, Loren chose stability and commitment, marrying Carlo Ponti instead. Her life, however, was not free of controversy. In 1982, she served 17 days in an Italian prison over tax evasion charges stemming from an accountant's error. Rather than damaging her reputation, the episode became a footnote in a career too substantial to be undone. Decades later, in 2013, Italy's Supreme Court fully acquitted her of disputes related to her 1974 earnings. She also fiercely protected her image, filing lawsuits in 1999 against adult websites that had circulated doctored nude images of her, making it clear that dignity mattered more than scandal. Sophia Loren has long been celebrated for elegance and beauty, but in 2006, she reignited global conversation when she agreed to appear in the 2007 Pirelli calendar at the age of 71, nearing 72. Shot by renowned photographers Inez van Lamswoord and Vineyard Matadin, the calendar took a radically different approach. Instead of glossy excess, the images were minimalist, black and white, intimate, and restrained. Loren was photographed reclining on a bed or draped in a sheet, conveying vulnerability and confidence rather than overt sexuality. Despite assurances that she would not appear nude, early reports sensationalized the shoot, with headlines speculating about topless or fully nude images. When the calendar was released, it revealed the truth. Loren appeared in lingerie or sheer fabric, never fully nude, yet undeniably bold. The public reaction was divided. Some critics questioned the choice, but far more celebrated it as a powerful statement that beauty, sensuality, and self-assurance do not expire with age. To many fans, the images were not provocative but inspiring, a reminder that grace paired with courage can redefine expectations at any stage of life. Loren herself later said she approached the shoot with the joy of a young girl, laughing, relaxed, and completely at ease in her own skin. For her, it was playful, liberating, and deeply personal. Not everyone shared that enthusiasm. Some critics and public figures openly questioned the decision, arguing that a woman of her age should have known when to stop, suggesting the images undermined her dignity and challenged traditional ideas about how older film icons should present themselves. Behind the scenes, however, the photographers made it clear that shock value was never the goal. The concept of the 2007 Pirelli calendar was described as a bed in 5 stories, a deliberate return to simplicity. No red carpets, no excessive styling, no artificial glamour, just intimate portraits designed to capture the inner worlds of 5 women. For Sophia Loren, the shoot was a conscious artistic choice, driven by self-confidence, nostalgia, and a desire to reconnect with a more stripped-down form of expression. She later said she felt beautiful and fully present in the moment, joking that no one needed to rush out and buy the calendar anyway since Pirelli only distributed it privately to a select VIP list. In the end, the shoot became one of those rare cultural moments that sparked both admiration and outrage. Supporters saw it as a powerful declaration that age does not erase allure or creative relevance. Critics viewed it as a provocation that challeneged long-held norms about modesty and aging in Hollywood. Regardless of where opinions landed, one truth was undeniable. Even decades into her legendary career, Sophia Loren remained fearless, unapologetic, and entirely her own woman. George Peppard Jr. was born on October 1, 1928, in Detroit, Michigan, to George Peppard Sr., a building contractor, and Vernal Rora Peppard, a music teacher. His arrival followed years of heartbreak, as his mother had endured 5 miscarriages before his birth. The family struggled financially during the Great Depression, and Peppard grew up in the Detroit suburb of Dearborn, graduating from Dearborn High School in 1946. Shortly afterward, he enlisted in the United States Marine Corps, rising to the rank of corporal before leaving the service in 1948. He initially enrolled at Purdue University to study civil engineering, but quickly realized the field did not suit him. Inspired by actors such as Walter Houston, he made a pivotal decision to pursue acting. Later calling it the best choice of his life, Peppard transferred to the Carnegie Institute of Technology in Pittsburgh, now Carnegie Mellon University, and graduated with a bachelor's degree in 1955. During his time there, he trained at the Pittsburgh Playhouse, worked as a radio DJ, and famously coined the term flurries to describe light snow, a small but memorable detail he would later recall with amusement. Adventurous by nature, Peppard also learned to fly and even trained to pilot a Learjet during his honeymoon in 1966. His acting career began on stage in 1949 at the Pittsburgh Playhouse, and after moving to New York, he joined the Actors Studio, studying method acting under Lee Strasberg. To support himself, he took on a wide range of jobs, from driving taxis to teaching fencing, while performing in summer stock theaters and at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, steadily honing his craft. By the mid-1950s, Peppard was appearing regularly on television in series such as Lamp Unto My Feet, Kraft Television Theater, and Alfred Hitchcock Presents. He also built a strong stage reputation with off-Broadway productions like Beautiful, Changes, and Broadway performances in Girls of Summer and The Pleasure of His Company, earning praise from critics for his intensity and discipline. His film career began in earnest with A Strange One in 1957, followed by Pork Chop Hill in 1959 and The Subterraneans in 1960. While not all of these early films were box office successes, they established Peppard as a serious, committed actor. His major breakthrough came in 1961 when he was cast opposite Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's as Paul Verhack, a role that secured his place in Hollywood history despite reported tensions on set. The success of the film led to major roles in productions such as How the West Was Won in 1962 and The Carpetbaggers in 1964, where Peppard further demonstrated his range and solidified his status as a leading man of his era. Known for his blonde looks, tall frame, and relentless dedication to his craft, George Peppard projected the image of a classic leading man, but behind that image was a far more complex figure. Directors sometimes found him demanding or difficult, yet those who truly understood him admired his discipline, intensity, and deep respect for the work itself. Peppard was not content to coast on charm alone. He consistently pursued roles that challenged him, determined to balance his ambition as an actor with the expectations placed on him as a Hollywood star. In 1965, he appeared opposite Sophia Loren in Operation Crossbow, followed by The Blue Max in 1966, a visually striking war film that further cemented his status as one of the era's most commanding screen presences. Despite mounting pressure from fame, Peppard remained focused on the pursuit of meaningful performances rather than chasing popularity for its own sake. His personal life, however, was as turbulent as many of the characters he portrayed on screen. Peppard was married 5 times and became a father to 3 children. His first marriage, to Helen Davies in 1954, produced 2 children, Bradford and Julie, before ending in divorce in 1964. Davies never remarried. In 1966, he married actress Elizabeth Ashley, his co-star in The Carpetbaggers and The Third Day. They had a son, Christian, but the marriage dissolved in 1972, accompanied by a substantial alimony and child support arrangement. Ashley later remarried, bringing that chapter to a close. Peppard's third marriage, to Louisiana realtor Sherry Boucher from 1975 to 1979, also ended in divorce, after which she remarried. His fourth marriage was to actress Alexis Adams, also known as Joyce Ann Furby, lasting from 1984 to 1986. His final marriage, to Laura Taylor in 1992, ended 2 years later. Reflecting on these repeated cycles, Peppard once remarked that getting married and having a bad divorce was like breaking the same leg in the same place over and over again, adding with dark humor that he was lucky not to be walking with a cane. Peppard lived for many years in a striking Greek Revival-style white cottage in the Hollywood Hills, complete with wraparound porches and a guest house tucked behind the main property. After his death, The home changed hands several times before being purchased in 2015 by writer and actress Lena Dunham. Alongside the emotional upheaval of his personal life, Peppard faced serious health struggles. For many years, he battled alcoholism, a fight he finally won in 1978. After achieving sobriety, he devoted himself to helping others facing similar challenges, later admitting with regret and honesty that he was ashamed of some of the things he had done while drinking. He was also a heavy smoker for most of his life, consuming up to 3 packs a day, until a lung cancer diagnosis in 1992 forced him to quit after surgery removed part of one lung. Despite declining health, Peppard refused to step away from acting. In 1994, he completed a pilot for a potential television series titled The PY, which aired as part of Matlock and was intended to spin off into its own show. The project would have cast Peppard as an aging private detective, with Tracy Nelson playing his daughter and partner. The series was never realized. Peppard's life came to an end on May 8, 1994, when he died of pneumonia in Los Angeles while battling lung cancer. His story remains one of immense talent, fierce determination, personal flaws, and hard-earned resilience, a legacy that continues to resonate with fans and colleagues alike. George Peppard's Hollywood image was always a study in contrast. He possessed the striking looks, confidence, and charisma that the industry craved. Yet beneath that polished surface was a man often described as complicated and volatile. Over time, many of the stories surrounding his difficult reputation proved grounded in truth. Alcohol played a significant role in shaping that image, and Peppard himself acknowledged that drinking gradually became a destructive force in his life. Co-workers and insiders recalled tense sets and unpredictable moods, particularly during the years when his addiction was at its worst. While starring in the television series Banachik from 1972 to 1974, he was widely regarded as a rebellious figure, drawn to excess, unafraid to challenge authority, and unapologetic in expressing his opinions. After quitting alcohol, Peppard reflected candidly on his past, acknowledging the damage it had caused and the mistakes he wished he could undo. In the end, his legacy is inseparable from both his brilliance and his struggles, a reminder of how closely talent and turmoil often coexist in Hollywood. His most unforgettable figures, he was never afraid to argue with fellow actors, producers, or even powerful network executives. That defiance, while rooted in conviction, gradually earned him a reputation as unpredictable, temperamental, and difficult to manage. That image would come back to haunt him in one of the most damaging moments of his career. In 1981, George Peppard was originally cast as Blake Carrington in the pilot for the high-profile television series Dynasty. Just weeks into filming, however, he clashed fiercely with the producers over the direction of the character. Peppard believed the role leaned too heavily into a villainous archetype already familiar from other hit shows, and he refused to play it in a way that felt false to him. The standoff ended abruptly. He was fired, his scenes were discarded, and the role was recast. It was a public and humiliating setback that reinforced Hollywood's growing perception of him as a liability. Stories from sets only deepened that narrative. Co-stars and crew members often described Peppard as distant, conceited, or emotionally closed off. During the filming of Breakfast at Tiffany's in 1961, tensions reportedly simmered behind the scenes, with some colleagues frustrated by his attitude and behavior. Over time, these accounts fused into a single damaging image, a gifted actor whose ego and volatility sometimes overshadowed his talent. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, industry insiders were openly labeling Peppard as box office poison. His high standards, fierce independence, and refusal to compromise made studios wary. As he later admitted in a 1990 interview, he had engaged in several very public disputes with executives and had effectively walked away from multiple television projects. Yet even then, he remained unapologetic about his priorities. He repeatedly said that acting mattered more to him than fame. The tragedy was that Hollywood, as a business, was rarely willing to forgive his flaws. His intelligence, intensity, and raw talent came at a cost, one paid in isolation, criticism, and long-term damage to his career. When it comes to Sophia Loren and George Peppard, their paths crossed only once, and even then, barely. Both were credited in the 1965 war film Operation Crossbow, but their collaboration was far more symbolic than real. Peppard starred as Lieutenant John Curtis, a daring Allied spy infiltrating a Nazi rocket facility, while Loren appeared as Nora, the wife of an engineer whose identity Curtis temporarily assumes. The film was produced by Loren's husband, Carlo Ponti, which partly explains why her role was relatively small despite her global star status. Her appearance functioned more as a glamorous presence than as a character central to the story. Behind the scenes, there is little evidence that Loren and Peppard spent any meaningful time working together. According to accounts from those involved in the production, their scenes were shot separately, likely due to scheduling constraints and the ensemble nature of the film. One co-star later recalled finishing his scenes before Loren even began hers, suggesting that Peppard and Loren may never have shared the set at all. Critics and later retrospectives described Loren's role as little more than a star cameo, included largely for name recognition rather than narrative importance. Operation Crossbow itself was structured around multiple parallel storylines, a format that often required actors to work independently rather than collaboratively. The script's weaknesses further limited any chance for genuine interaction or chemistry between the two stars. With underdeveloped characters and fragmented subplots, the film offered little opportunity for a meaningful professional connection to form. In the end, while Sophia Loren and George Peppard were technically co-stars, their association was more a matter of casting logistics than shared experience. There is no credible evidence that they developed any personal or professional relationship during filming, making their brief intersection in Hollywood more a footnote than a partnership. For fans who may have expected explosive behind-the-scenes drama or a legendary on-screen pairing, the reality is far quieter. The meeting of these two Hollywood icons was brief, distant, and largely superficial. And yet, when you step back and look at the lives and careers of George Peppard and Sophia Loren side by side, the contrast says far more than any dramatic confrontation ever could. Hollywood often forges legends in very different ways, and these two stars are proof of that truth. George Peppard's career was marked by undeniable highs. Roles in films like Breakfast at Tiffany's and The Blue Max cemented his status as a leading man of the 1960s, admired for his intensity, physical presence, and commitment to craft. But those successes were frequently shadowed by personal struggles. His long battle with alcohol, repeated clashes with co-stars and producers, and a growing reputation for being difficult on set gradually strained his standing in the industry. These challenges do not diminish his talent or the impact of his best performances, but they do explain why Peppard often struggled to sustain long-term collaborations or maintain stability in an industry that prizes reliability as much as brilliance. Sophia Loren's path could not have been more different. Her career stands as a study in discipline, resilience, and quiet authority. Known for her professionalism and composure, Loren navigated Hollywood's highest peaks and deepest pressures with remarkable grace, even when faced with public scrutiny, whether from the legal complexities surrounding her marriage to Carlo Ponti or the controversy sparked by daring photo shoots later in life. She emerged with her reputation intact. Co-stars and directors consistently praised her for being respectful, focused, and cooperative, traits that allowed her to build lasting professional relationships across decades. In the end, the brief intersection of Peppard and Loren reveals more about Hollywood itself than about any personal conflict between them. One career burned intensely but unevenly, shaped by inner battles that spilled into professional life. The other unfolded with steadiness and control, guided by talent, balanced with restraint and emotional intelligence. Together, their stories illustrate that stardom alone does not define longevity. How an artist treats others, handles pressure, and navigates adversity often determines whether a legend endures quietly or fades amid unresolved tension. The brief intersection of their careers in Operation Crossbow quietly illustrates just how different their working lives truly were, even while sharing the same film credit. Scheduling choices and production logistics meant George Peppard and Sophia Loren likely spent little to no meaningful time together on set. In many ways, that distance may have spared Loren from the kind of on-set tension Peppard was known to generate elsewhere. Their collaboration was symbolic rather than substantive, a clear reminder that being labeled co-stars does not always mean two careers genuinely intersect in any lasting or personal way. What this comparison ultimately reveals is the powerful role character plays in shaping a legacy. George Peppard remains remembered as magnetic and talented, but also volatile, a man whose ego, intensity, and inner battles often complicated his professional relationships and sometimes overshadowed his ability. His story is one of brilliance paired with friction, ambition weighed down by temperament. Sophia Loren, by contrast, is remembered for elegance, discipline, and emotional intelligence, qualities that allowed her not only to endure but to thrive across generations. Her grace under pressure, professionalism, and quiet authority became just as important to her legacy as her beauty and talent. In the end, the story of Peppard and Loren is about far more than fame or film credits. It is about choices, resilience, and the way personal conduct shapes how history remembers an artist. Hollywood can elevate talent, but it also exposes character, and the way each of them navigated that unforgiving spotlight explains why some legends age into reverence while others become cautionary tales. Their careers may have crossed briefly, but the contrast between them offers a striking lens into the rewards, pressures, and hidden costs of life in the public eye. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story resonated with you, support the channel by liking and subscribing so we can continue uncovering the untold stories behind Hollywood's most fascinating figures. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Who do you believe handled fame better? George Peppard with his bold intensity or Sophia Loren with her timeless grace? Share your perspective in the comments, and join us again for more deep dives into the lives that shaped cinema history.